Hello everyone, I'm Sophie and I'm currently at Kechara Forest Retreat, Bentong, Malaysia. And this is the book that I'll be reading from, Tales My Lama Told Me, by Pastor David Lai. The stories were told to him by our Guru, His Eminence, the 25th Sam Tuko Rinpoche. So I'm doing chapter 14, These Hard Times. These are stories about Rinpoche's childhood spent in New Jersey, where he was in the adoptive family. And we'll be reading from page 141. So let me share with you a picture. This is a class picture of Rinpoche when he was young student. Okay, page 141. That was when things began to unravel. She began to threaten to kill me. She would tell me all this in Mongolian, and I would live in mortal fear. She said that she would come in the night and kill me while I was sleeping. I was not allowed to leave my bedroom door closed. For years, she would come every single night to check on me. I didn't know why she did that. When she threatened me, I would be in mortal fear when I went to bed. I would not be able to fall asleep until she had come to see me and left. Each time she came to check on me, I always pretended that I was asleep. She would turn on the lights, look at my face for a few minutes, and I would just freeze. I couldn't do anything because I had to pretend I was asleep. If she found that I was not asleep, she would rant and rave about something that she was not happy about. If I so much as gave her a wrong look, beatings would start and they could go on all night. The strange thing was that if I was asleep, she would just leave me alone. Her temper progressively became worse, and sometimes there would be no warning. She would just take out a broom or whatever she could get her hands on, and I would get it. She would stick my head under the bed and hold me down by my shoulders, using her legs. The rest of my body would stick out, and she would just beat me senseless. The thrashing would go on for hours and hours. It was all her own pent-up frustrations pouring out through her biggest hang-up. She would scream that I was becoming more like my father. I found out later that he wasn't even my father because I've been adopted. Anyway, she needed to vent her anger and frustrations out on me because of how he had hurt her so badly. As a young boy, even school was no respite because when I came home from school, she was always in a foul mood. She would go into a fit, and often I'd come home from school and find many things in the house broken and thrown in a big pile for me to clean up. I lived with this abuse for many years and was told constantly that I was not good enough. I was told that I was never going to amount to anything when I grew up, and that I wouldn't have any friends, and that I was a very bad person. For years I would hear her scream all that to me. On her good days, she liked the way I sang. I always found this to be quite strange. When she was in a good mood, she used to praise my singing, my height, and she even thought I was good looking, but that was it. She would praise me for these three things, but compared to everything else she said, it was like a small drop in the ocean. It was because of all the abuse that I finally tried to commit suicide. I really tried to commit suicide, and I cried myself to sleep almost every night because there was no escape. There was just no escape. I didn't know the law and I was just a kid. I didn't know I could go to the police station and tell them everything. I didn't know what else to do. Eventually, my relatives, who were not my real relatives but became like my real relatives, offered me a place in their homes. Up to today, I am still in contact with many of them, and they always ask me to go back, but I don't really want to go back to America. So I had to go to school every day, study, smile, and pretend that everything was well. But when I came home, it would be a living hell, and it was like this almost every day. On one occasion, her ranting and raving went on for 10 straight days. The longest time she was in her angry mood was for about 12 days, and I would have to be extremely alert every single day when she was in such a foul mood. I was on alert all the time, but I had to be specially alert on those days. I didn't want any mess up because without any warning she would get her hands on anything nearby to beat me up. I was seriously afraid that she would one day grab something sharp and that would be the end of me. As I grew older, she began to use her fists. She would just punch or slap me across the face so hard that my ears would start to ring. After a while, she stopped that because her hands swelled up as I was getting bigger and stronger. Despite her violence, I would never fight back. I would never push her or even stop her. I don't know why, but I just did not retaliate or defend myself. I just thought that I shouldn't defend myself because she was my mother. I never contemplated hitting her back. Back then, I didn't even know she was not my real mother. They lied to me about my identity and didn't tell me that I was half Tibetan. I was never told who my parents were. My biological grandmother, the royal queen of Xinjiang, western province of modern China, and my biological mother, who was the royal princess, would visit me sometimes. I was never told who they were, but my grandmother would sometimes tell me, "I'm your grandmother, and don't you forget that." I wondered what she was talking about. Obviously, my identity was concealed from me, and I didn't know who I was or what I was. There were times that I started doubting whether I was really Mongolian. I even wondered if I was really their child because I wondered why I did not look like them. I began to have more and more doubts as I grew older. For as long as I can remember, I had a very strong interest in Dharma. Some of my earliest memories are of myself when I was just a little toddler walking on the streets of Taiwan and hanging out in temples. I was born in Taiwan and then later taken to America to live with my step parents. I have always had a fascination with temples, images, the meaning of their poses, color, and symbology. I love the iconography of images. Growing up in America from a very young age, when I was allowed into the library, I would borrow a lot of books and begin to study iconography on my own. I would look at the details of images in the book and observe them at my neighborhood temple when my teacher was there. I wouldn't even dare call him my teacher then because I was such a pest, and I didn't think he would entertain my numerous questions. I would bother him and his students by asking a lot of questions every time that I was allowed to go to the temple, especially when my mother wasn't around. I did all this from a very young age. I can remember so clearly that even as a very small child, my interest in certain Buddhist deities was already there. This interest was there without anyone teaching me or telling me anything because when I first set eyes on them, I was immediately attracted. I don't know why or what was drawing me, and I didn't even know how to explain it. I can even remember having very odd dreams of myself wearing yellow hats. Once I dreamt of going into a throne room, and there were three hats hanging on the wall. All three were yellow Lama Tsongkhapa's hats of different sizes. I took hold of each hat and put each one on until I found the one that fit me best. I had strange dreams like that all the time. As a child, I would be very attracted to lakes, mountains, and caves. My dream was to go to a cave and do retreats. Of course, I wouldn't tell my mother that because it would only give her another reason to yell at me. She called me a fanatic, and so did my father. They clamped down on me going to the nearby temple to be with the great master and my first teacher, Geshe Lobsang Dachin from Sarah. In order to deter me from associating with him, she even went to the extreme of spreading rumors in the neighborhood about this Lama, saying that he was sleeping with female students. However, that didn't stop me from going to the center, so she called him up and threatened to send the police there. Later, she threatened to do all types of things to get him in trouble. Still, I somehow found my own way to the temple. Sometimes my parents would catch me red-handed at the temple. If I got caught at the temple prostrating or doing mantras, I would be taken home, interrogated for 1 or 2 hours, and either get a beating or sometimes just grounded. If I got caught in the temple receiving teachings, I would be grounded for an average of 2 to 3 months. And with that, I end here. Please do join me for my next session as I continue on with the story. Every time, it really is painful to read it, especially the part where his mother would beat him, so harshly and without much care. But later on, Rinpoche found out that she was actually schizophrenic. So I guess that was the illness that, made her have wrong thoughts, and she took it out on him. Okay, so let me end this with a completion dedication in Tibetan. Changjub Sencho Rinpoche, Make Panam Geishi, Gepanam Pame Payang, Gone Gondo Bewasho, Donito Rinpoche, Make Panam Geishi, Gepanam Pame Payang, Gone Gondo Bewasho, Daso Jini Sapage Wadi, Tandandro Agona Kampadang, Jepa Jesu no Santrapai, Tamping Imporin to Sa Seisho, Kewa Kundu Yandala Madan, Drami Joki Palalo Chojing, Sadam Langi Yaterasone, Doji Changi Opanga Tuso, Gewadi, Yoduda, Lamasangi Druyone, Druachikia Malupa, De Salago Pasho, Jogi Gapusungapa, Josunampa Pewala, Geki Samasi Wadang, Tunki Malu Sawasho, Dadam Sengi Dazandan, Driwe Songi Latene, Gewalo Santrapai, Tampayo Riva, Gyushi, Ni Modeles and Dele, Ni Mingo Yandele, Nisintatu Dele Pel, Kunchusungi Jingilo, Kunchusungi Ngotruso, Kunchusungi Drase, Sho, Jasonama Kusen Rapting Ching, Nam Katrini Chochoke Padang, Losam Tempe Dromi Sapsongi, Droe Munsa Tatoni, Gyushi, Gari Rawe Kowe Shingamde, Penandela Malu Goene, Cherenze One Tensing Getsogi, Shape Shiri Baru Deng Gyushi. Home dumping auto malupa, then the dollar salduso, Kodan den palong shot no, Kepaso Shik Shukten Cell. Thank you again, and please do join me in my next session as I continue on with the chapter.